And welcome to another episode of the Laundromat Millionaire Show, sponsored by HM Company at draintroths.com. Today we have an interesting episode. It'll be just me and Dave, and we are going to be talking about industry events. Over the past few years, especially since post-COVID, we feel like there's been a ton of events popping up, which is awesome because it's great opportunities to network. But it can be difficult to figure out which ones should you go to when you can't go to them all. So we're going to do a rundown of some of the different events that the laundry industry has to offer, what to expect at them, and our take on whether it is worth your time or not. But before that, to go along with this, we've also added an event calendar to our website. In our monthly members Q&As, we had some members asking about this feature, and so we've just added it. If you go to the Education or the Resources tab, either one, you can find the events calendar. It is a great place to find out what's going on in our industry, and also, if you know of events, there is a link where you can fill out information for your event, and we can add it to the calendar. So definitely check that out. But let's get started with today's episode. There's conferences, workshop, webinars, live Q&As, trade shows. Like what's the difference between all of them? Are they worth the investment? Are they the right fit for you?
Why is this workshop free and this workshop's $1,000 and this workshop's $5,000?
There's nothing else in the industry that compares to it. All right, so today's episode is all about laundry industry events. How to keep track of all the different things going on, and how to decide which ones you should go to and what to expect at them. Are they worth the investment? Are they the right fit for you? So based on our experience, we try to go to as many events as we can. And based on that experience, we thought it might be helpful for us to share our experience with you. And when we weren't there, at least share what we've heard about it.
Yeah, I mean, Carla, we happen to have a pretty extensive network of friends in the industry that are powerhouse operators and owners that have been in the industry for decades. I, back in the day, back in 2009, 2010, I went to a lot of these events by myself and got a lot of value out of them, some of them more than others. And we got to thinking the other day, along with some of the people in our membership community telling us, hey, this would be a great resource to have as this calendar. It got me to thinking that I think, after 15 years in the industry, I mean, like Excellence in Laundry, for example, I've probably been to 7 or 8 of those. And a lot of at the Clean Show, I've been to every one since 2013, I think, maybe 2011. And I take for granted that the things that I know about them and the value they are to me. And I realize that, even the Clean Show, while there's 10,000 people from all across the globe at these events, the truth is there's more people, laundromat owners and dry clean owners, that are back home because they don't realize or they don't think there's value. And full disclosure, when I was first in the industry, I would ask a few friends that I had in the industry about some of these different things. And honestly, most of them would tell me, oh, they're a waste of time. They're not worth going to. And if I had just taken them at their word, I would have never went to these. And so once again, I want to be very clear that this is just our opinion of these events. We don't have anything really negative to say about any of them, but they do all fit in their own little category. And so we kind of categorized them in our mind and the way we're going to discuss them in the podcast today. But we're basically doing this as just kind of a free resource. And of course, we're also doing it because, as you guys know, the Clean Show is coming up in August of 2025. So if you're watching this when it first comes out in a couple months, and Launder Boost, our digital marketing company, is going to have a big presence there. So we hope you'll come over to the booth and talk to us and chat a little bit. But we also just want you to know what the Clean Show is all about. And if you see some ads about it, digital marketing and things, and you're wondering, what is this thing and should I waste my time going? We want to try to give you, once again, just our opinion as owners and operators and friends in the industry and people that have been to pretty much all of these events or these types of events. So there are a few events we haven't been to that we're going to talk about real briefly and just share a little bit about what we have heard from our friends about the event. But full disclosure, a couple of them we haven't been to personally, but we probably will go to them in the future. So we might have a better grasp on what these events are in the future. But hopefully this is helpful to you all.
So we're basically going to be breaking things down into to kind of groups, because sometimes it can be really hard to keep track of everything.
How about
I feel like
silos, Carla. I like the word silo.
Him and his silos. Anyway, groups, the different groups that we're going to talk about. Obviously, the Clean Show. That's kind of the big one that we're going to discuss. Yep. But then there's conferences, there's workshops, there's webinars, live Q&As, trade shows. Like, what's the difference between all of them? So that's kind of what we're hitting today. But let's go ahead and get the big dog out in the open, and that is the Clean Show coming up August 23rd through 26th in Orlando, Florida. So this is definitely the biggest event for our industry. It's not just our industry. Well, depends how you categorize industry. It's not just vended laundry, but it is also dry cleaning. So it's the whole garment care industry. And it is a huge floor of tons of booths. Literally every product you can think of, you're going to find there, and products you haven't even ever heard before. You're going to find booths there for all those ancillary services, things like cleaning our laundromat, like special mops and garbage bags and wire carts and like everything, all the payment systems, all the processors, all the machines, everything. We're big fans of the Clean Show, and we feel like, if anything, this is an event you should really try to go to, at least at some point in your laundromat journey. But if you can make it this year, it is a vital event for you to really see what's out there, in addition to networking with other people. What do you want to say about the Clean Show?
Well, the first thing I like to do when I'm talking to like coaching clients that ask me these kind of questions is kind of break down that, in my opinion, there's kind of 3 or 4 values with going to the Clean Show. It is a traditional trade show, right? So it is the big dog and pony show, all the things Carla mentioned, all the booths. When it comes to a traditional trade show, the trade show floor is typically open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's usually how they do it each day. It's 4 days long. The one thing I do like to point out to people is the first 2 days are insanely well attended. You will probably find almost 100% of the people that are there at 10 a.m. Will still be there on the first day, will still be there at 2 or 3 p.m. on the second day. Now, a lot of people, with this being a 4-day event, will fly in for 2 days, attend the event, and then fly home the third day. If you need to do that because you can't be gone for 4 or 5 days, that's totally fine. And if you have limited time, the first 2 days are the ones I would go to. One of the things I also tell people is on the third day, it's still very well attended. It's usually about 60%, in my opinion, of the people that were there the first 2 days are there for day 3 as well. And then on day 4, to be honest with you, it's pretty much a ghost town. So just keep that in mind when making your plans. I will say that there are the second portion to the value of the Clean Show is what I call the educational sessions. And these are put on by all the different trade organizations, dry cleaning institutes, CLA, different companies like that, private events, private classroom sessions, things like that from different companies. Those are typically the educational sessions happen in the morning from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. They're not allowed to have them between 10 and 5 because that competes with the trade show floor, and they want all the population of the show to be all on the trade show floor between 10 and 5. That's where they want the happenings to be. But those educational sessions, especially when I was new to the industry, were very, very valuable to me. Now, these sessions tend to be one of 2 things: either a very large open conference room of 600 to 700 people, and you'll have either one speaker for an hour or a panel discussion. Those sessions are going to be very similar to what you'll experience at conferences, very high level, quick anecdotal information. Oh, I do this and I do that, but nothing really super detailed. Or there are typically, every Clean Show, there are some smaller ones that are less attended. They're more of a classroom of, let's say, 80 to 100 people in these, and they'll be a little bit more detailed on a particular topic, like how to fold laundry, as in how to fold and package laundry or something like that. Now, they typically have more than one classroom session going on at one time, and so you can look at the agenda and pick which ones you think you want to go to, either based on who's putting it on, the organization that's putting it on, that may interest you, or the topic itself, or sometimes the speaker or speakers if it's a panel discussion. If you've heard them at other events or always wanted to hear them, or you see a subject they're talking about that that speaker's very knowledgeable about, then maybe that's how you'll pick that. But I can tell you that the educational sessions over the years have been one of the most valuable things for me to attend. And when you're already there, it's technically not part of the trade show per se, but they're free. So you don't have to pay anything. You don't need tickets. I will say for the bigger events, more popular speakers, get there early. So a lot of times they become standing room only and things like that. So don't arrive late. But if you find value in that type of education and learning, which I always have, then I would recommend attending those and getting there between 8 and 10 in the morning. Then the flip side of it is after 5 p.m., after the trade show floor closes, there tends to be like an hour or so lag where everybody's leaving and getting their Ubers back to their hotels and whatever. But every single evening, at least the first 3 evenings for sure, of the clean show, there are usually 2 to 3 to 5 different types of dinners / meet and greets, happy hours, hors d'oeuvres and drinks kind of things. They tend to fall into a couple. They all fall in the same category, I guess, but they're usually put on by private companies. The software companies, the marketing companies, even the manufacturers sometimes have these, or the trade organizations, things like that, have different things. And they tend to fall, they're all in the same categories. They're all kind of loose, not really any formal content for the most part. They're mostly around just networking and getting to know each other and things like that, building relationships, which is really valuable. But the 2 categories they tend to fall in is usually paid and not paid. I guess another category I'd put in there is some of them are invite only. They're smaller events and you have to actually be invited to them. And some of them are open to whoever would like to attend. And so once again, I would recommend that just my recommendation, what I've always done is try to attend as many of those as I could, because I saw it as an opportunity to network, build relationships with people in the industry, whether it's the service providers that are putting on the events themselves, or of course the hundreds of people that tend to be at these events. I can tell you that some of the most rock solid relationships I've ever built in the industry were at some of these events where this person introduced me to this person just over cocktails or something like that. Next thing you know, you stand there and talk for 3 or 4 hours. But those are usually either free or rather inexpensive. And then the last thing I'll throw out there is the trade organizations tend to do more of a big formal dinner that you have to be a member of the trade organization to attend. Usually these dinners are several $100s a piece. You have to buy tickets ahead of time. A lot of times they do sell out. A lot of times they're at very nice resorts and things like that, off-site, not at the conference center itself. And once again, the reason we created this events page is because we're going to try to share as much of that information with you guys as we can. But attending the Clean Show is definitely, I hear people say all the time, it's just another trade show. And in a way, that's kind of true, because I've been to plenty other trade shows in other industries, and it is the stereotypical trade show. But the thing I think is really unique and cool about it is that our industry is so kind of fragmented and mom and pop that it's a lot of just regular old people, us laundromat owners, that are there. And of course, the manufacturers, distributors, service providers all want to tell you about their latest and greatest equipment. So it can be a great place to collect information. I mean, we talk about like the software companies, there might be 8 or 10 of them in the industry. I mean, if you wanted to spend one whole day just looking at those, and maybe you haven't chosen one yet, you could go around to each one of them and spend an hour and a half in their booth and probably get more depth information than you will ever get anywhere else at any time in the industry on those, and leave with a treasure trove of information. So there's the relationship side, there's the educational side, and then there's the traditional trade show where you're going around with your bags and collecting your little trinkets. So the last thing I'll tell you with is when it comes to the Clean Show, based on the 8 or 9 I've been to now, whatever it is, usually when you leave the Clean Show, there's usually 2, sometimes 3 things that have kind of just lit the show on fire. I remember at 2019 Clean Show, the Speed Queen Alliance rolled out their touch screen, and that was the talk of the show. And they're by different organizations at different times, and as everybody's leaving, everybody's talking about, did you see that folding machine? Did you see that robot? Did you see that touch screen or that new software company or whatever? But I think the thing I want to leave you with is that it can and it should be much more than just a trade show, but it has all the benefits and the positives of a trade show. So as you can tell, I'm a big fan. It's been a big part of my journey to success in the laundromat industry. And I highly recommend that you attend, even if it's something that you have to really budget for and you can only go for a day or 2.
Kind of the big take homes for me for the Clean Show, a couple things I want to mention is how much, one, it's so great to like see the equipment and meet the people behind the equipment in person. That's something you can't do just searching through different things online, whether it be the software, the machines, all that. So I like that in person, in your face, can touch it, feel it. I'm that kind of person. So that's great about the trade show. But then also, it can really be an opportunity to see where our industry is going. I want to highlight back in 2015, that is where Dave first heard about pickup and delivery, which has completely transformed our business. And obviously, our lives. Yeah, really. But if he hadn't gone to that clean show, who knows how much longer it would have been down the road until he heard about pickup and delivery. So really, it's a great opportunity to not only get new products and decide on products for your current business, but really to transform your business for the future. I will also add one caution, because I know we've had some friends that have gone to clean shows in the past that were trying to get into the industry and were a little disappointed. It is not a great place to find a distributor. Distributors, because they're so location-based, a lot of them will be at the clean show, but they don't have booths at the clean show because they service a specific market. It's a great place to figure out maybe which machine company you want to go to, possibly even go to the equipment manufacturer, and maybe you can get, a list of some of the distributors in your area. But it's not really a great place to find a distributor. So I will caution you on that, because I know that's a complaint that we've had some friends that were getting into the industry had in the past. So I just want to throw that out there. This show is sponsored by CX Perks. Running a business isn't just about providing a service, it's about creating an experience. You can have the best equipment, the cleanest space, the most efficient team, but if your customers are stuck waiting with nothing to do, that's a missed opportunity. CX Perks turns downtime into engagement with digital magazines, mobile games, and personalized content delivered straight to your customers' phones. No apps, no logins, just scan, tap, and enjoy. And Dave, it's not just about keeping customers entertained. CX Perks helps you make the most of that waiting time. You can even prompt them to leave 5-star Google reviews, push out promotional offers, or collect feedback through surveys, all with zero effort on your part.
That sounds absolutely awesome, Carla. It's not just about giving people something to do, but using that time to build loyalty and grow your business at the same time. I love it.
Exactly. Whether you own a laundromat, a salon, or an auto shop, your waiting area is your first impression. Make it one that keeps customers coming back and helps you get more reviews and feedback. Right now, listeners of Laundromat Millionaire can get $100 off your purchase of CX Perks by using the special link in the description or visiting laundromatmillionaire.com/services. Upgrade your waiting experience today at cxperks.com. Next, let's talk about, so we got Clean Show out of the way. Next, let's talk about all the mini conferences. Now, first, I feel like we need to define what we call a conference because they don't all use the word conference, and some things use the word conference that we wouldn't even call a conference. So we're saying a conference is like a 2-day event that is offered typically once a year or once every couple years. So some of these would include excellence. CLA does an excellence on the off years of the clean show, the opposite year of the clean show, so the even numbered years. Let's see, recently Wally Cope had Laundry CEO. He did one last year and is planning one this October as well. Curbside had a conference this past year, and they're planning, I believe, on doing one next year as well. And then also, they call it a wash, dry, fold workshop, but we would call it more of a conference. CLA, the past few years, has been doing an annual wash, dry, fold workshop conference in Nashville, and they're doing another one in October as well. So next, let's talk about these conferences, what to expect, and which ones, what we've heard about them or what we've experienced in them, and help you figure out if they're the right fit for you. We'll start with Excellence in Laundry. So Excellence in Laundry is on the even number years presented by the CLA. It's a 2-day event. It's typically in a nicer place. Think luxury. Think they
Five-star resort.
5-star resort. Think usually there's a lot of golfing that tends to happen by groups of people at them. From our experience going to it, it tends to be people who've been in the laundromat industry for a while, more so than the newbies. It will have some vendors there, like a room of vendors, kind of small scale trade area where you can go to different booths. I don't know, what would you say about CLA Excellence?
Well, one of the things I'll point out about the conferences in general is kind of the number of people attending. I don't know if we mentioned this or not, but the Clean Show, they claim, and I believe, tends to have between 10 and 12,000 people attend it in like a 3 to 4 day period of time. That's a lot of people if you figure there's roughly 30,000 laundromats in the U.S., but there are people coming from all over the globe to that event. These conferences, the reason I put them in their own category is kind of two things. One, the number of people that typically attend. It's usually between low hundreds to at the most 300. I'm sure
Well,
people
some even down in like 40 or 50.
Yeah, I was going to mention that,
depending
but depending on the attendance and stuff. But generally speaking, I put these conferences in the 100 to 300 participant range. Roughly about 20% of those, and this is just anecdotally, I've been to tons of these conferences. Anecdotally, I'd say about 20% of the room is distributors, manufacturers, reps, salespeople, people that work at the software companies, stuff like that. So of course they're there to sell you something, but of course to build relationships. And a lot of times they're great speakers and panelists, and they bring value in other ways. The other thing I always like to say is the type of content that's put on. So in a 1.5 day conference, they call them 2 days, but they're really only about 1.5 days of content. Usually the night that we all arrive there's usually some type of a happy hour type of thing, which is nothing more than a meet and greet, cocktails, hors d'oeuvres, stuff like that. The next day, which they would call the second day, I guess, of these conferences, those tend to be packed days. Tends to be breakfast in the morning, lunch in the afternoon. Some of the conferences include dinner. A lot of them do not. They just stop at like 5 o'clock and you can do dinner on your own. That's one long day of content. And the type of content that is there tends to be more high level, very vague type of content. Now, it can be helpful, can be valuable, especially to newbies. But you have to remember, in this 1.5, 2 day event, you're typically going to hear from, let's say 10 to 12 different speakers for at the most an hour. Right.
And they're speaking to 100 to 300 people.
Yes.
So the content is very high level to apply to all those people, whether it be newbies, mature in the market, own 20 stores, or looking for their first one,
And to be clear, I've spoken at these on panel discussions. I've spoken to them as keynote speakers. Me and Carla have done combined keynote speeches. And there's nothing bad about this. It's just, if you're the speaker, you kind of need to understand that you're speaking to someone that just found out about how great the laundromat industry is 2 months ago and bought a ticket because they live in that city, up to some of the best operators in the entire industry that have heard the same general content over, 3 decades in some cases. And you're trying to speak to them. And then, of course, the people in the middle that tend to be, the really hungry people that have done some things, made some mistakes. They've wet their beak. They're really looking to go to another level. And so if you know anything about public speaking, when you're speaking to a room of 300 people and there's going to be this disparity of knowledge, you kind of have to keep things high level, or you lose half or 3/4 of the room. The other thing I will say is, depending on the event that you go to, some of these events, a lot of times put on by the trade organizations, are very limited in what you can talk about. They will, when they agree to have you as a speaker, they will say, you can say this, you can't say this, you can't talk about this, you can't give exact numbers. And I don't really know what the reason for that is. That's
I know there's something about
show.
Pricing, like we couldn't share a lot of our pricing strategies. And two, they try to stay very brand agnostic. So they don't like you to say, which supplier you use and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, they make money. The trade organizations are there to make money for the most part, and they're generating revenue from all the different sponsors, and so they want all the sponsors to be happy. So they don't want a keynote speaker to tout one particular company when there's 9 others there that paid to vend and be an attendee at the event and promote their product. So they try to be what I call politicians, kind of keep everyone happy but keep all the information very vague. And that's not necessarily good or bad. That's just what they are. If when you go to these types of conferences that's what you're getting, then that's what you can expect. But back to excellence, which we were talking talking about. So I want to get that out of the way first, Carla. When it comes to excellence, which she brought up first, that's put on by the CLA. I can tell you some of which I've observed by attending several, 7 or 8 of these now. I can also share some information with you that I've been told directly by the CLA. So if anybody wants to dispute this, someone at the organization has told me this. When the Excellence in Laundry was first created roughly 20 years ago, what I was told by executives at the CLA was that it was created with 2 things in mind. They wanted it to be a multi-store type of event. You didn't have to have more than one store to attend the event, but that was the idea behind the content. They
were targeting established owners,
yes, for
basically.
Sure. They also wanted it to be very, very high level. And what I mean by that is 5-star resort. Back then, the tickets could be several $1,000s for one person to attend these. The rooms could easily be $500 to $700, $800. A round of golf could be $500. Dinner could be $300. They were trying to create an environment where the average laundromat owner couldn't afford to go. And the reason they were doing that is they were trying to create a certain type of ambiance for the room. All of these super high level, super successful, wealthy people in the industry that are rubbing elbows, sharing best practices and tips and tricks, and building relationships together. Not necessarily a bad thing, but that's what I was told. And I can tell you that the first 2 or 3 Excellence in Laundry conferences I went to, keep in mind, nobody knew who Dave Menz was back then, and I had no money, that's for sure. And I can tell you that I struggled to even get people to speak to me because it tended to be kind of an exclusive type of environment. But that's how the Excellence in Laundry conference was created. And I do think it's shifted a little bit today.
Yeah, and the content was more geared towards that too.
Yes.
I know earlier on, the excellence content was more about wealth management, creating a legacy. I know one of them we went to was even they had a wine connoisseur. What do you call the wine person? There's a name for it.
I don't remember.
I don't know. I don't drink wine. But all that kind of stuff. It wasn't even laundromat focused. It was like living the high life focused, I guess is what I would call it.
Protecting your wealth, legacy,
Yes.
generational, passing your wealth on.
Yes.
And it was geared towards laundromat owners, but just so you know, that's how it was created, but I do think it's very different today.
It has been
fair.
transforming in the past few years, where I know they've even tried to create some things, some content specific for like new owners, trying to get some of the people new into the industry to want to come to excellence. Their content has become a little bit more laundromat focused, laundromat content. So I do think that there's a shift where it's more laundry industry focused instead of just living the high life focused or whatever. And then also it's more inclusive to kind of everybody in the industry. I know even the price point has come down some. Still staying at very nice facilities and all that, but not quite to the level that it was even just a few years ago. So that's a little bit about excellence.
Yep.
Hopefully that gives you an idea of if that's going to be the right place for you.
I do want to say one thing before we move on. I feel like
Yeah.
we maybe scared some people off from attending excellence, and I don't want to bypass the shift too quickly, but the shift in it was to bring it. I think somebody somewhere, I don't know who, just an observation based on Dave Menz's attending these events. I think someone somewhere realized that they were catching a lot of flack for oh, this is very exclusive and I don't feel like I belong and those types of things. So I do think they intentionally shifted to make it not that anymore. So I want to be very clear that I think it is designed for the everyman or every woman laundromat owner. You don't need to be wealthy. It is more around running and operating your laundromat. As Carla mentioned, they've included more and more sessions, breakout sessions and content for newbies in the industry. So they're trying to attract the mainstream. And I can tell you that the audience has grown. Like the number of attendees has grown from under 100 back in the first couple I went to. That was like I said, very high living type of stuff. To nowadays, I mean, pretty consistently, there's 250 people at Excellence in Laundry. So if you're considering going, I don't want you to think that it's still
not
is
like it was before.
What it used to be. Yeah. I would encourage you
and
to go.
hopefully it doesn't go back.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this is just Dave and Carla Menz's opinion based on our observations. But I do want to point out to you that I think it's something I would recommend most laundromat owners go to. If you go there, just the networking alone is easily worth the ticket. The opportunity to speak to vendors in the off year of the clean show. You go into the room where you have breakfast and lunch, and usually you're circled by vendors. I mean, the last couple excellence we've been to, there was 20, 25, 30 vendors there sometimes. So that can be very valuable, once again, to be in one place and be able to just walk around and talk to, a lot of times, the CEOs of the company or their head sales guys or whatever. You can get demos at these things too. They're not as big as an elaborate as like the clean show is, but I do think they're very helpful. So I want to make sure we didn't talk anybody out of this event. We are always there. I always say with almost all of these events, to me nowadays, with the experience I have in the industry, it's worth me being there just to network and build relationships and solidify relationships I already have in the industry. Some people in the industry, it's the only time I see them is at these events.
Whether you already have a laundromat or are looking to get into the laundry industry, everyone needs proper drainage. We use HM Company drain troughs. Their drain troughs were first created in 1991, and they have been the leading drain trough manufacturer ever since. They're made in the USA, and their drain troughs are fully customizable to meet your needs. That's why we've used them ever since entering the industry. They're easy to clean for our staff and plenty sturdy when we need to walk on them when servicing our washers. With the ability to span up to 25 feet, our troughs rarely need to be connected together, creating an easy installation. Want to slope your trough like we do? No problem. Just let the experts at HM Company know. For more information, go to their website at draintroughs.com. That is draintroughs.com. HM Company Drain Troughs. They've been leading the industry since 1991. Check them out today. So a couple other conferences. Let's see, another one that the CLA has been doing now annually is the Wash, Dry, Fold workshop. We call this more of a conference because, like we said, it's that 2-day event, 1 to 300 people. And it's those sessions, those big sessions. They usually have 2 sessions running at the same time. So there is some choice as to which ones you will attend. But this is all focused around people who want to do either drop-off services or pickup and delivery services. And the content is focused on that as well. Kind of the same thing as with any conference, the content's going to be somewhat high level, but just by breaking it into just drop off and delivery, it's not quite as high level as you might see at just the Clean Show or at Excellence, because they're not really talking to all laundromat owners, but kind of segmenting it out a little bit.
Just people that do drop-off laundry, pick-up and delivery, those types of things.
Yes. The first couple of them, they only had one session, then they broke into where you had a couple sessions to choose from. They've also kind of migrated away from just single speakers, like keynote speakers. And I know the last one they did, they had a lot of panel discussions, and they even had each company kind of sponsored their own panel discussion. I will say, it was useful if you were trying to figure out which software to use, because you could go to each software's panel discussion and learn a lot about that software. It was a little bit salesy, though, I will say. If you were just trying to get overall information about pickup and delivery, not a specific software provider, it maybe wasn't as beneficial on that. I don't know what this one will hold. This year's Wash, Dry, Fold, it's been in Nashville the last few years. It's October 26th through 28th, if you want to go to that this year. What do you want to say about Wash, Dry, Fold workshop?
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head for most things. I mean, it's semantics. It's not really that important, but we'll talk about what we perceive as true workshops in a minute here. I don't think workshop is a fair name for this. I think it's absolutely a conference. It's a niche conference focused on drop-off laundry and pickup and delivery. And I think it's very valuable. But once again, I think most of the content is high level. Now, it is niche content because it's not about acquiring a second store or signing a new lease or whatever you might have, multi-store ownership. I mean, it's all around wash, dry, fold, and pickup and delivery. So they typically have packaging and folding sessions. And, you're not going to see someone there that, as far as a vendor, that doesn't have anything to do with wash, dry, fold, pickup, and delivery. So you're going to see bag companies and software companies and marketing companies, different things like that at these events. But it is a great thing to go to. I mean, I've attended all three. I think Carla attended the last two with me. This will be their fourth one. And it is pretty well attended, I think mostly because it's a new thing. I think people are, this is just my opinion based on a lot of conversations. I think a lot of laundromat owners are a little bit tired of the high level, boring, vague content, and they're looking for that niche stuff. I think it's part of why like our podcast does really well and things like that. And so I think they're recognizing that and trying to niche down the type of conferences that they do. But it's a great event. I would absolutely, especially if you own a laundromat and or you're doing drop-off laundry or pickup and delivery, the diversity in the group is once again pretty great because you'll have people that have no intention of owning a laundromat, but are trying to launch a pickup and delivery service out of their garage or out of whatever type building
out
a
of someone
facility,
else's laundromat.
out of someone else's. I mean, you'll have, I would say 15-20% of the audience kind of tends to be people that for whatever reason either don't have the money to buy or build a laundromat or don't have a desire to own and run a laundromat, but they want to do drop off, pickup and delivery. And so some of the content is geared towards how to launch a pickup and delivery service without a laundromat, as an example, which is very niche stuff. And if you own a laundromat, that may not apply to you. But once again, that event last couple years has attracted over 200 people to it. So anywhere there's 200 of my peers, I want to try to be in that town, in that city, in that resort. And, you know, what I've learned over the last couple at least is that for every session I listen to, I can always pull a nugget or two out of it that makes our business a little bit better. And then once again, the breaks, the networking events, the after hours type of dinners and things like that, that's where you really build relationships with the vendors and you build relationships with your peers and your fellow laundromat owners. Absolutely great event. I'm glad the CLA puts it on. And I actually like the tweaks that they're doing to it.
Yeah,
highly recommend.
I think it's improved each year,
Yep.
I feel like. So the other two conferences that I wanted to mention were new just last year in 2024. There was Laundry CEO put on by Waleed Cope in Dallas, Texas. He's doing another one October 5th through 7th in Dallas again. And then also Curbside Laundries put on a conference out in California where they're based. In 2024, and from what we've heard, we believe they're planning one for 2026. So I will caution that neither of these were we able to attend. We had conflicts for both of them, or else we would have. But a little bit about each of those. So Laundry CEO, what we heard about it from last year was its first one. Some great speakers. I know he brought in some very well-spoken speakers, like professional speakers to do some sessions. And then he also had some laundromat owners from around the country do some sessions as well. I understand the resort was very nice. It was all very, very high level, very fancy. Turnout wasn't very good for his first show from what I've heard. So there weren't a lot of people present, but I'm guessing that he's hoping to get a better turnout this year. We'll see, because that is close to the clean show, but we'll see.
And I do want to point out, Carla, I mean, these are, so the trade shows put on by, trade organizations. I mean, they have, I don't know if more resources is the right term, but they have a bigger audience. They've been around for 70 years. They have a bigger email list. The Waleed thing, and even we put on our own conference a few years ago.
Yeah.
And the Curbside event. I mean, these are private events put on by a private individual. Even Curbside. I mean, it's a company, but it's privately owned by Matt and Aaron Simmons, friends of ours, who run the Curbside software, and they put it on an event. And I talked to them about it, and they said, "Look, our number one priority is to elevate the industry and bring a different type of content to the industry." And they were very clear with me. They were like, and a close number two is we hope to promote our software. But they did say it's in that order. We are not doing this just to promote our software. But from what I hear, it was an awesome event, very well attended. Then I don't know if this is true. I wasn't there, but from what I've heard, the numbers were about 180 that were there.
Good turnout.
Yeah, so that's a really good turnout from what I've heard. And once again, was not at Waleed's. I think the numbers were around 50 or 60. But I do know, as someone who if you don't know, we have put on a conference ourselves, the Laundromat Millionaire Conference. Our attendance was about 130. So they always say that the first event you ever put on, a lot of people are going to kind of stand back and watch. much. So I'm sure, I haven't talked to Waleed about this, but I'm sure that they're hoping that attendance continues to grow. And if word spreads that it was a great event and great networking and food and resort and all of this.
Which we heard it was great. I mean, content, food.
Yeah, for sure.
Event, venue, all that kind of stuff.
And both of those, as Carla mentioned, if we could have went, we would have went in both of those cases. I've talked to Matt and Aaron, and they have told me they plan, I don't know if this will change, but they told me that their plan was to very intentionally do this on the off year of the Clean Show. So obviously they're not doing a curbside event this year, but I think they are planning to next year. I have to talk to some of the other software providers that have mentioned maybe someday doing something like that themselves, even before Curbside did it. I'm sure it takes a substantial budget, and I know it takes a lot of time to put something like that on. So I don't know how many of them will do it. But obviously Waleed is just a private individual.
It's a big undertaking.
It's a big
Having
undertaking.
done it ourselves, I know people are always asking when we're going to do another one, and we've been focusing on other products because, like I said, it's a big undertaking.
It's a very big undertaking.
Hopefully we will in maybe another couple of years. We'll see.
And I want to be clear that, as someone who also private individuals have put on our own conference very successfully, it's a ton of work and it's a ton of resources for a private individual to put on. So if you know these people and you like their content and you like what they're about and what they do and you want to support them, by all means, I would encourage you to go, because it takes some guts to try to pull something like this off. And it takes a lot of work and energy and effort to pull this off. And typically, someday they may be profitable. Ours was not. I don't know about the other ones, but a lot of times it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years before it's actually profitable. You might lose money for a couple of years. You might break even for a year or two. And then eventually, as word spreads across the industry that, you know what you're doing, you know how to put on a good conference, then they can become profitable entities. But so the conferences tend to fall all in one category of conferences, but they tend to fall in ones put on by the trade organizations, which are a little bit more political, a little bit more financially focused of, raising money and things like that. But once again, if you don't care about that and you just get through what's in it for me, can be great networking, great time to build relationships and get to know other people. Just know that some of the speakers and some of the content is going to be a little canned from different sponsors, like she said, kind of salesy and stuff like that. So if you go to one and 10 minutes in, you realize this is nothing but a sales pitch, just quietly get up and walk out. And there's usually one right next door that's a different topic. But once again, just to stress, I love to go to these because anytime there's people between 100 and 300 people in the industry that are at these events, I want to be in that room. I want to be in that resort networking and talking to people. Even if I didn't attend any of the educational sessions, I would still want to be in the resort and meeting and talking to people and networking with people. And by the way, that was the case before I had a podcast and a workshop and coaching and things like that too. So that's kind of that conference category. And as Carla mentioned, one of the things we did when we put on our conference is the only conferences that existed at that time were put on by the trade organizations.
There was Excellence and the Clean Show.
Yep. And even
opposite years.
That's right. And there was nothing else back then. And so when we put it on,
trade shows.
We were trying to kind of disrupt the industry a little bit and saying, hey, there's another way to do this. What we're doing is good, but there's more to it. And we were very public about this. We were trying to encourage other people like us, private individuals like Waleed, like the Simmons brothers, whether they have a company that provides software or not, to do things like this and to empower them, inspire them, and show them that's possible to do. And I don't know that we had anything to do with either one of theirs. I have no idea. But I personally believe and hope and pray that there's going to be more of these popping up across the industry. That may mean you have to pick and choose a little bit which ones you go from time to time. But we try to attend all of these that we can.
Is your laundromat ready to become the neighborhood's #1 choice? LaundroBoost has proven strategies to help your business flourish.
I think we saw changes pretty quick before that 4-month range. I'm in that 4-month range now, and we're seeing changes left and right. I mean, pickup and delivery clients, drop-off clients, self-service clients, businesses up as a whole.
Literally, it was shocking to watch the numbers jump. I wish I could go back and I could begin to track these things, which I have done, to see what percentage growth we had, but it wasn't unusual to go up 30% per month.
At LaundroBoost, we specialize in fueling laundromat growth. Through targeted Google ads and powerful social media campaigns, we make your location stand out and attract loyal customers. Ready to level up your laundromat? Visit laundroboostmarketing.com and book a call with us for a free consultation.
All right, so next we're going to switch to kind of what we would call the one-day events. These would be things like distributor trade shows, or there are some different connects. There's a CLA Connect. We're going to talk about that. Eastern Funding does a workshop. Then obviously the distributor shows. Our distributor, HM Company, has one June 4th in Columbus at the Junto, which Dave will be speaking at, and Brett Lyon from Laundry Boost will also be speaking at. So we're going to talk about some of these one-day events. These are more where you're going to find more like in the 30 to maybe 150 range in the number of people. And just like a one-day event, like it starts in the morning and it's over by 3, 4, 5, might include lunch or whatever. So first, let's talk about the distributor shows. So distributor shows, I know Dave in one of our podcasts called like a little mini clean show. So distributor trade shows, obviously you're going to have just the equipment manufacturers there that the specific brands of equipment that they distribute. So you're not going to see all the different equipment brands, but the ones they specifically distribute. But they do tend to bring in other vendors, like things like Santa Wash, Ozone, and Laundry Boost is going to have a table at the one in Columbus, and Eastern Funding, and some of the Fast Card and Sense, and all those different companies. So you will still see some of the booths like you do at the conferences and that you see at the Clean Show, but it's going to be a lot smaller. But also with a lot less people, it can give you a great opportunity to network and get to talk to those people. You're not fighting through a big crowd. Also, a lot of times they tend to pull from the area around you. So it gives you a chance to network with people that aren't as far away from you, that are maybe in the same state or a neighboring state. So some good contacts nearby.
Yeah, these events are put on by the distributors, usually at their sole expense. I think they do, I don't know this for sure, but I think they do get a little bit of a stipend from the manufacturer because the manufacturers encourage these. Just so you know, these have been going on for, I think, 50 years or more. These local distributor shows, before all this other stuff existed, were basically all our industry had. And they were designed to be very local and intimate. And most distributor shows, I don't know of any, and I speak at a lot of them. A lot of these companies hire me to come in and speak as like a keynote speaker at these events, and they're typically always free. And so a lot of times they include breakfast and lunch. Sometimes they just include lunch. As she mentioned, usually they're over by 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. Typically you're going to see, as Carla mentioned, you're going to have the vendors, and it's usually a smaller room. So you might have 6 or 8 vendors with, 6-foot tables that are there to talk about their product. Some of the bigger ones might have 10 or 15 of them, and a larger conference center. As she mentioned, they can be as small as 20 or 30 people, up to 100 or so on a bigger event. I spoke at one recently that was 150, and it was by far the biggest distributor show I've ever spoke at. Great energy. These distributor shows are usually geared around all the things Carla mentioned, and then a couple other things. One of them is they want you to network with other laundromat owners in the area. Sometimes you are competitors, by the way, and that can be a little awkward. But a lot of times you're not competitors. I mean, as we know in the industry, you kind of be within 5 or 10 minutes of each other to be a competitor for the most part. The distributor shows, obviously, they put them on for free. They usually have a couple different types of content over that 8-hour session. They usually have 1 or 2 people from the distributor themselves, maybe the owner, a salesperson, a service technician, do a session or a speech, if you will. A lot of times they have a service technician, lead technician, sometimes from the manufacturer, fly in, and they'll do it on how to repair our new touch screens or whatever, that type of thing, the newfangled thing. And then, of course, they usually have a question-answer session because a lot of laundromat owners still fix their own equipment. But a lot of times there will be a sales session on, how to negotiate a long-term lease or a financing session. Sometimes it's someone from, let's say, Alliance Financing, which is an arm of Alliance, will be there. A lot of times they'll have a table, but a lot of times they'll do a session on what they look for when they approve and financing deals. And that information is usually pretty accurate across whatever company you use. And then the last thing is almost every distributor show has at least 1 or 2 private speakers that aren't really there to sell you equipment, aren't really there to sell you the distributor services. They're really there to just attract heads, to attract numbers. And a lot of times it is your podcast people like ourselves, your influencers. Brett is going to be speaking. He's the CEO of Laundromat, which is kind of a new up and coming company. So he's going to talk about all the new things with digital marketing and AI and things like that. And a lot of these distributors, just so you know, fly these people in. I've flown all over the country speaking at these events. And it can be a great way to meet these people that you've heard their podcasts, you've listened to them, get a book from them, get them to sign a book, whatever, those kind of things. So these are very small, intimate sessions, but I'll stress that one, they're free. Two, they're usually local. So, I mean, you can attend one in Dallas, Texas from Cincinnati if you want, but typically it's who can drive there within 2 or 3 hours surrounding that area. So it tends to be more of a regional thing, but they're free. You get a lunch out of it and some networking. And really all you got to do is like get up a little early that morning, drive to the event an hour or two away, and then you're home by dinner. So it can be a very valuable thing. And other than, like I said, a day's worth of your time, they can be really valuable. Now, I will say, in the past, distributor shows were a little bit less like I just described and much more salesy. So I would be careful because not all distributor shows are the same. As you know, not all distributors are the same.
Look for the agenda.
That's right. Look at the agenda. They'll usually release it a couple weeks ahead of time. So that's the distributor show side of the smaller workshops, if that's what we call them.
So some more of these kind of one-day events, one-day local events, because they're not always they'll usually do even a few a year in different places around the country. Another one would be CLA Connect, which were just like dinners in different markets, which were a chance kind of to network. Did they even have speakers at those? I don't even know.
I don't think they had any content typically.
But it was more just a meet and greet kind of thing in your market to kind of get different owners together, and they would have them sponsored by different companies in the industry. So, if it was sponsored by Sense or sponsored by Laundromat or whatever, then you would have people from that organization there as well.
But I think it's cool that the CLA is doing this and trying to bring value in that way. I haven't been to them. I have spoken to a few dozen people that have been to them, and the feedback that I got from them privately, and I wouldn't want to say who they were, is that they were okay. The thing I think is cool about this is that the CLA is traveling all over the country, doing these in different cities, Texas and Seattle and whatever different places. And I think that's pretty cool because a lot of laundromat owners have trouble getting away from their businesses, and a lot of laundromat owners don't have the budget to travel. And so even if they can get away, they don't have the money. And if they have the money, a lot of times they just can't get away from their store for 2 or 3 or 4 days to attend the clean show or a workshop like ours or something like that. So I do think it's cool that they're trying to go to these cities. So we'll let you decide for yourself whether, you should join the trade organization or whatever. But I think it's cool that these events exist. If you've had a different experience than what we've heard from people, by all means, shoot us a message. We're not here. We don't have any agenda. We don't get anything out of if they are successful or fail. And if anything, we hope all of these succeed because our hope is that more of these things, whether it's the conferences, the workshops, even the clean show, I would love to get to the point where the clean show is done every year. I think our industry could grow to the point where that could be a demand in the industry. So we're not here to say anything negative about anyone, whether any of these events we've been to or not. We're just here to share what we've heard about these from people that have been there, and if we've attended ourselves, our opinions of what those were.
The last one in the kind of one-day workshop, conference, whatever, the Eastern Funding does one. I've never been to this, so
I haven't been to one either. They have reached out to me to have me speak at one, but I have not spoke at one yet. But I have seen some videos. I've talked to Brian Grell, a friend of mine about these. I've talked to Byron a little bit about them. I think these are super cool. Eastern Funding, he's putting these on, and they are free events where Eastern Funding is funding the whole thing. It's kind of a distributor show in a way, only they're going to different cities all over the country. Eastern Funding is funding them completely, so there's no cost to attend. You can just get free tickets. From the pictures and videos I've seen, it looks like there's anywhere from 20 to 60 people that typically attend these. Of course, there's always a couple speakers from Eastern Funding on different financing topics, trying to educate people on how to finance a laundromat. And, maybe some of the things you hear on YouTube aren't true, and let us nix those, Yeah.
YouTube's not always right. TikTok, it's not a reliable source. course.
Those types of things, I think trying to do a little bit of that, definitely trying to network and educate people in the industry. And then, of course, get Eastern Funding's name out there because I'm sure they want to finance, your projects. And we've done business with Eastern Funding. They're a sponsor of ours, of the show. So we're big supporters, amazing people, really know the industry well. Once again, haven't attended one of these yet, but their marketing department did reach out to us about having me speak at a few of these. So we'll see if that happens. But I think these are really cool. And I'll stress once again, I think it's cool that these companies are committed to doing these smaller engagements around the country in different areas. And I also think it's really cool that they're making them either super low cost or completely for free, like the distributor shows. I think that's really neat too, because once again, I remember the day where I couldn't get away for a day, but if I could, I certainly couldn't afford more than $50.
Yeah.
And so,
or the travel time, and the cost of the travel.
So I think it's cool. Once again, we put on high-end workshops here in Cincinnati. We'll talk about that in a minute, and that's a very different thing. But we completely understand that not everybody can leave home for 3 days, travel to Cincinnati, and spend thousands of dollars on a very intensive workshop. So I think it's cool that these companies are doing these things. And full disclosure, someday me and Carla hope to maybe do something like this ourselves with Laundromat Millionaire on a smaller scale. We're not a company that has 150 employees like Eastern Funding. But we hope to do little things like that. And if you're not aware, we do different like free meet and greets and stuff like that around the country from time to time.
So the next thing is, I feel like we've said it a lot, but workshop. So when we initially called ours a workshop, there weren't other things being called workshop, but now I feel like workshop is everywhere.
Yeah.
So the other event we're going to talk about, and we feel like there's nothing else in the industry that compares to it. And that's our 2-day pickup and delivery, wash, dry, fold workshop that we do. We only do it in Cincinnati, Ohio, because half the time you're in our laundromat. We're training you hands-on through all of our SOPs and exactly what to do to package, to process, all of that. And then half the time is spent in a conference room where we teach you about how to do your pricing and how to do the cost analysis and everything to figure out what your price should be and more of the stuff behind the scenes, how to market your product, all that kind of stuff. But it's different in that, one, it's a very small group. We limit it to 20 people. And sometimes we've even had, 12 to 15. So it's a very small room environment, very intimate environment. We get to know each other very well. You have a ton of time with us and our team to get all your questions answered, and even individual time to talk with us. It is 2 very packed days. So we start at 8 a.m. the first morning, and we get back to the hotel close to 11 o'clock or even midnight because and all the meals are in there, but literally we're together that entire time because of the content. You're watching our processes in action while we explain them to you, while we teach you how to do them. We literally have drivers loading the van when we teach you how to load a van. We literally have orders being delegated to our processors that are going to be processed that night, and yes, you go back for third shift and actually watch them process in action, and you have a chance to ask them questions too. So it's a really long first day. The second day, we have shortened a little bit for our workshops moving forward based on some requests to be able to fly out a little sooner. So our second day we start a little later, about 9 a.m., and it goes to 6:30 p.m. But then another full packed day. So everyone leaves very exhausted, but it's very different from the clean show, very different from the conferences, even different from these other workshops, which are, the 20 to 100 people or whatever, or even 20 to 60, and that it's a very small, intimate group, and it's very hands-on, and it's very interactive. It's not, even when we're in the classroom conference environment, yes, we have material that we're presenting to you, but it's literally you can raise your hand at any time or shout out a question anytime you get stuck, because it's such a small, intimate environment. So it's very interactive. It's really unlike anything else in the industry. And we have announced our next date, which is our last one for 2025, which is November 4th and 5th. We tried to move it back enough to not conflict with any of the other things going on. But yeah, we feel like if you're someone who's wanting to get into wash, dry, fold, and delivery, that it's an investment, but it's completely different from anything you'll find anywhere else. It's not the high-level content. It is down in the weeds. This is how you do it. Here is a book of all of our SOPs. Yes, we're going to help you figure out how to figure out what you need to charge to be profitable in your market based on your wages. Like it's in the numbers. It's intense.
Yeah, I think it's important that people understand that, when we use the word workshop, we're using just a small, intimate environment of, let's say, roughly 20 to 50, 60 people. But there's different levels to different workshops too, and none of them are better than others. They're just different. A big part of the reason we launched our wash, dry, fold, and delivery workshop is, one, we saw that wash, dry, fold, pickup, and delivery was really hot. Two, we've just become really well known as one of the trailblazers for wash, dry, fold, and pickup and delivery, and the profitability and the scalability. And three, we do this every single day. So we think it's great that there's all these high-level conferences and even vague workshops put on where 2 or 3 speakers will speak for an hour or two. But we looked across the industry and I thought it's a shame, because I know a lot of you are my friends. I know there's a lot of powerhouse operators out there that have amazing facilities and amazing operations, and understandably won't share any of that, right? They'll share super high level in a panel discussion, but they're not really going to give you any true information. And I understand why. They don't want their competitors to get that information or whatever. We decided to kind of buck that trend and be like, it started out as me teaching how we do what we do and how we've scaled to $1 million business in pickup and delivery, and how we did that in a market that's really not that big of a market. It's not small, but we're not in Chicago or Houston, Texas or something like that either. But we looked across the industry and we said there's a whole lot of content that's kind of vague, high level, and doesn't get very granular. There isn't any like really detailed, granular, intensive type of workshop content out there. And the only people, in our opinions, that can put that on are people that are doing this every day and have the operations, because we wanted it to be kind of 50% classroom where we're teaching you. We have this 150-page two-handed handbook that we provide to you. That's kind of your business Bible when you go back home to help you launch and scale your business. But we didn't want to just hand you a book. We do sell it if you can't get to the workshops on our website, but it's also included in the workshop. And we wanted you to have that, but then we wanted to go over some of the big, meatier, more important sessions in great detail and let you pick our business model apart. This is the opposite of high-level content. This is very detailed, like I said, very granular. Ask a million questions. This is literally examples of how we do everything. So we're going to talk about it about half the time and show you slide decks and spreadsheets and different things like that. But then the other half, we're going to take you into our operations where we do this every single day, and you're going to get to see and watch our team do this in real time. And that was kind of the vision behind it. And it started from a place of people hiring me to coach them, over the phone, over Zoom, whatever. And I did that for 2 or 3 years with this content. And everyone said the same thing. Man, this is fantastic. This is amazing. This is so helpful. The only thing that would be more helpful, Dave, was if I could come and see it in your store. And so I started having people pay to fly to Cincinnati one-on-one with me and actually spend 2 days with me and my team and just doing this. And of course, it was expensive and it was very time consuming. And that kind of, aha one day into, we should make this into a workshop. And we wanted to create this very intensive environment where every minute of every day, our team is giving value, but it's all based on how we do things at Queen City Laundry. And then you get to see them in real life. So once again, full disclosure, we've been very transparent about what we do. And my hope and prayer is that not that we are the only ones that do this in 5 years, but other operators. And I don't think just anyone can pull this off. I think you really have to know what you're doing.
You have to have the team and the operations.
For sure.
And then part of it with us is, yes, we still do this every day, but we have the team in place where we're not, us specifically, are not essential to it operating.
Yep.
Our GM, our assistant GM, our store managers, they basically manage everything, and we're able to just be the high-level people overlooking everything.
Yep.
And so you have to have that as well.
We are truly working on our business, not in our business. And that wasn't always the case. So we teach you how to what we call launch, scale, and optimize your business. But anyway, you guys probably know a ton about our workshops already. We just finished our 10th one, as she mentioned. Our 11th one will be at the end of the year in November in 2025. But more important than just promoting our workshop, we wanted you to know that this is another type of workshop that's out there. And when you see this advertise a workshop and that advertise a workshop, a lot of times they couldn't be more different, but we are also hoping to inspire our friends that are powerhouse operators that are doing business similar to us in your markets. We're hoping to someday, if it's on your heart, to inspire you to do things like this. And I've always said, if anyone ever puts on an intensive workshop like this based on how they do things in their operations, I will be one of the first ones to buy a ticket. Because if I can pick up a couple golden nuggets that make our operations better, I will be all over that. So that's the workshop category. Once again, I know we're running a little long on time, but we thought this was be a helpful episode for you.
The last thing is, if you can't afford to go places, there's also opportunity to network online. So there are webinars, live Q&As, and they're basically what they sound like. So even if you can't afford to go to another city and participate in some of these events that we've mentioned, definitely check out the webinars and the live Q&As as they're offered. The trade industry offers some. We sometimes have some live Q&As. Our membership has a live Q&A with us every month, but we also do some others with different guests on our show. So definitely those are always an option too, and often free. Yeah, a
lot of those webinars that used to exist 3 or 4 or 5 years ago used to always be, $100 for a virtual ticket to attend this webinar, which I always thought was a little crazy. And then now that a lot of the different influencers and podcasters and things like that are doing, and by the way, software companies and different things like that are doing free webinars and free Q&As and things like that. Now all of a sudden, some of the people that were charging for them have made theirs free as well, which we think is really cool. And so while these aren't in-person events, these are virtual events, we actually think they're super helpful, and usually you can't beat the price. A lot of times if you attend them, they'll even send you the recording later. So maybe you can attend half of it but can't get the rest. They'll send you the recording. Maybe you register to attend and then last minute can't attend. They'll usually send an email of the recording. And of course, in the live version, you can get in the chat and sometimes even in video conference and things, ask questions and kind of have a little bit of back and forth. That can be super valuable as well. But we think these are awesome. A lot of companies across the industry has exploded and started doing these things because you can produce them pretty inexpensively. And a lot of these things are really helpful. And I always say, if you pull one golden nugget out of it, man, that's probably a very valuable hour. And it didn't cost you anything, and you didn't even have to leave your business or your house to do it. So what we've kind of done is segmented this episode from, what we call the big behemoth, the clean show at the big official trade show, and the value proposition associated with that based on our perception and our attending, all the way down to the small, free, virtual events. And hopefully, I always say on this show, we don't want to take anything for granted. So this isn't just about the newbies, but hopefully this is more helpful to kind of compartmentalize for the newbies kind of the different opportunities that are out there. But the interesting thing too is our industry, while we're now having all these different things going on, one, it's really confusing to people, sometimes even veterans, confusing as to whether it's worth it and why is this workshop free and this workshop's $1,000 and this workshop's $5,000 and all these different things, to understand them a little bit better. But I think it's also really cool that, this is our members' idea, not ours, for us to create this events page. And a lot of people may think, we create an events page and it's just our events, just us trying to sell stuff. And our events will be on there, whether it's our free Q&As or our member Q&As or our workshops or different things like that. But we're going to put anything on there that we can find.
There's actually a link if there's an event you know of or you're putting on your own event. There's a link there where you fill out a form, send us the details of the event along with a website link, and we will add it to our calendar.
Yep.
So,
and I want to be clear, Carla, there's no charge for this.
No.
There's no affiliation. Of course, you all know we have partnerships with some companies and not others. It doesn't matter who you are. If you have a distributor show, a free workshop, whatever, if we find out about it, we'll just put it on the events page. But if you notice that there's something missing, we're not doing that intentionally. So whether it's a private conference or a paid workshop or a free webinar or whatever, if you just fill out that contact form on the events page, we're going to have that information on there. And it's already pretty robust. Carla and the team have done an amazing job, but I think it's going to become more robust over time. And for you laundromat owners out there, it creates a one-stop shop of not just Laundromat Millionaire events, not just CLA events, not just private events of this company or that, or or, not just paid events or free events or different things like that. It's one place you can go. So it's available free for everyone. And on the flip side, there's no charge if you want us to promote your event. And so if you want us to put it on that page and we missed it somehow, fill out that contact form. And the more information you give us, the better.
All right. Well, that's it for today. Hopefully you found this episode helpful. And hopefully we will see you in a few months at that clean show. So once again, this is Dave and Carla Menz with Laundromat Millionaire, and this is the Laundromat Millionaire Show, sponsored by HM Company at draintroths.com. Check you out next time.
Thanks, guys. Take care.